The reason I reached out to you is because I realized that I needed help in getting to my goals and keeping those goals. I had some successes, but I would always seem to then go backwards. So I couldn't sustain the goals I was reaching. And that's really the reason I reached out. I knew I needed some help. And for me, it's not always easy to admit I need help. But I realized I definitely, in this area, I needed to get help, especially in the nutrition. So the biggest struggles that I would experience is that I would have success reaching like athletic goals, maybe running, half marathons or triathlon, half Ironman things. But either during the course of training for those or slightly after, I'd always seem to get injured. So I had I would say the athletic part of training down, but I believe that my nutritional portion to sustain that training wasn't right. I just didn't know which way it wasn't right. Was I eating too much? Was I not eating enough? When should I be taking in the nutrition versus, before, during, after? What type of stretching, things like that. Should I do this type of stretch before I run, or should I be doing that after I run? So I didn't really have those answers. And I did some online research, and you get a little bit of everything. But really, the main thing is that I just had a lot of ups and downs. So I would say that was my biggest struggle, is I couldn't find consistency. So I never, obviously you get bombarded with commercials for, hey, try this diet, or whatever it might be, whether it might be Weight Watchers or, keto diet and stuff. I've always known that those were temporary, that those weren't going to be for me. Those are just Band-Aids. So I never tried any of those. I really just did things that were on my own. So I can't really speak to the success or failure of those because I never tried them. I just knew that I would do things on my own, whether it was maybe some intermittent fasting, I would test out that. And again, intermittent fasting didn't seem to work well with someone who's training early in the morning, and then you have this long window where you can't eat. So I couldn't really come up with the right answer. And I was just, again, struggling to maintain healthy goals. I get a lot of injuries, and then I would fall backwards in my training. So I had a training coach at one point in time when I was doing longer distance triathlon racing. And that training was mostly focused on the exercise portion of it, not so much the nutritional portion of it. I did have some input from that trainer as to, when you're out on your bike and if you're doing a 3-hour ride, that you need to take in X amount of, goo packets or gel or hydration mixed with something. But it wasn't geared towards my whole life, my daily life. It was just geared towards the time of the day and week that I was spending exercising, which could have been between 10 and 15 hours a week of training during that. So I knew I needed some help in everyday training and nutrition. You worked at a health club that I trained at, and I would see you most mornings. And you also trained several of my triathlon training partners that I train with on a weekly basis. So it was really two things. I could see your work ethic almost every morning when you were working with your one-on-one clients at that health club. And I noticed such a difference. I'd been a member there for many years. I saw a lot of personal trainers who had come and gone. And many of the personal trainers seemed like they were punching the clock, or they were talking about whatever, sports and stuff. And I would be overhearing things while I was working out near you and one of your customers. And you were very serious and focused. I could see you charting things. And I knew that that's the type of mentality that if I'm going to pay good money and hire somebody, that I want. And then in addition to that, when I would talk to my training buddies who were already working with you, everybody was just unanimously, oh yes, Ashley's the best. Ashley's the best. So I could kind of see it from a little bit of a distance. We didn't really know each other, but we saw each other a lot. And once I got serious about hiring somebody, and I just asked a few questions to my buddies, and I'm like, are you still really happy with Ashley? And they're all like, yes, she's awesome. You should absolutely sign up with her. So it was twofold for me, and it was really a no-brainer. I did not actually search out for any other trainers or interview anybody else. I wasn't skeptical. Again, I knew and I could see and I heard about the very different disciplines that your expertise in. So I wasn't very skeptical. It actually turned out that it was much more than I thought. I was seeking, hey, I need nutritional help and some help with some exercise stuff, but really quite pleasantly surprised to know that Ashley, you're so knowledgeable in other areas of mind, spirit, and body. It's almost like at times you're a therapist or a yoga instructor. You have a lot of knowledge with a lot of different skill sets and different disciplines, and that surprised me on the good side because it was like added bonus to what I was really seeking. So after our first conversation and maybe the first week or two, I knew I was like, wow, this is going to be everything I thought and then more on the positive side. So not skeptical at all and very pleasantly surprised and really, really happy.
Oh.
My first really big breakthrough came pretty early after tracking. So I never really tracked anything, and your program has you track all of your intake. And I learned through you, and we learned very quick, I should say, that I wasn't taking in nearly enough water. But more importantly, I wasn't taking in enough nutrients or the right kind of nutrients in the level of exercise that I was putting out. I was under eating, so to speak, where I was, causing more harm to my body, having it shut down. So really, that was kind of the first breakthrough. I kind of thought that was going to be the case, that I wasn't sustaining enough intake. But it was hard for me to get there, but we worked each week on plans that would get my intake increasingly up to the levels that I would need to sustain the exercise levels that I was putting out. So I think for me, that was the first really big breakthrough of many that we've made since we've been working together. And it was a great one. Anyone, that's thinking about working with you, I would highly recommend. It's much more than just nutrition and exercise. It's really I don't know if you call it holistic, but it's a very well-rounded look at your whole life. And it's not a fad or a portion of your life. It's a change in your lifestyle for the better and to keep you, moving forward, as you like to say, in a positive direction. I also like that your steps and goals are attainable. You keep clients like myself accountable. And that's a big part. Some people need more accountability and need that hand holding and the, individual training. You're not something that is one size fits all. You really take the time every week on our calls to dig in. You read my comments and help take that into consideration as we develop the next week's plan. So that has, it's made the world of difference. I feel great. We always talk about goals. Some of them are small, some of them are large. We talk about the small wins being just as important as the big wins. I've had a lot of really great big wins so far working with you, and it's really changed my overall outlook.